So I limped on into work, feeling a little bit dejected. And I remember talking to my supervisor, Leo, and I said, Leo, I don't know what to do. I said, I have to leave at 2 in the morning to get here to work on time. I've hit 2 deer in 2 weeks. I just don't know what to do. And Leo very kindly looked over at me and he said, Mark, he said, have you ever considered slowing down? To be honest, I had not thought about slowing down at all. It never occurred to me. But looking back, that was the first time the universe tried to send the message to me that I needed to hear. And there's 3 parts to it. Number 1, the solution to our problems is surprisingly simple. It's not easy, but it's surprisingly simple. The second thing is that when there is somebody that has a lot of experience and is kind, if they see what you're going through, they can usually identify the problem immediately and offer you a solution. And probably the most important message that came out of it is that any solution to our problems requires us to be willing to change our own behavior and our own thinking. Well, as we get started, I would like for all of you to consider this phrase, blinded by the obvious. What exactly do I mean by blinded? It's not our sight that I'm talking about. And if it's obvious, how can we be blind and not see it? As we are here today, surrounded by all of these brilliant people at MIT, in this area where education is so powerful and some of the powerful minds are out there with creating innovations that are shaping our world, it's important to remember that no matter how smart you are, we have to be conscious of all human beings' issues with being blinded sometimes to the obvious. We need to know when our minds are part of the problem. So some people have little challenges that are not as drastic as mine. About 42 years ago, I'm going to tell you a story about an incident where I was completely blind to the obvious, and I learned 3 powerful tools that came out of that experience that changed my life. So think back, 42 years ago, I'm a 21-year-old kid, started a nice young family, and I had the opportunity to move from downtown Los Angeles area up into this little resort town called Big Bear Lake, California. It was because the company that I was working for was in LA and they were moving to Ontario, and I decided, well, it would be so much nicer to have a quality of life in the mountains with fresh air, blue skies, out of the rat race. So I decided it would be easier to drive 1 hour and 20 minutes from the mountains to Ontario than to stay in Downey and drive 1 hour to get to this new location. And being a man of action, I moved quickly, and I was there 6 weeks before the warehouse moved. And so that meant for 6 weeks, I had to drive 2 hours from Big Bear into downtown LA. Now, thankfully, my shift started at 4 a.m. in the morning, so I was able to drive for 2 hours with no traffic and get there. And everything went just fine for about a week, until I was surprised with something one morning that was totally unexpected. I woke up to fog that was so thick that you could only see about 50 feet in front of you. Now, being young and bulletproof and thinking that I could conquer the world, I got in my car and I drove as fast as I could, keeping my eyes focused out in front of the car, trying not to hit anything and staying between the lines. And all of that seemed to work out pretty well for about the first 45 minutes until I got to the very bottom of that hill. And when I got to the bottom of that hill, for a brief moment, I saw Bambi running away from me in the front of my car. And boom, I launched Bambi and never saw her again. My heart was pounding, adrenaline was pumping, and I was just so fearful that I had harmed my car. And when I got out, it was dark, it was foggy, and I looked, and I had dodged a bullet. There was no major damage to the car, just a whole bunch of hair on the front grille. So I continued on into work, thinking that I had dodged a bullet, and I was a little bit more careful for the next several days driving to work. But then another week came by, and I woke up in the morning, no fog, so I'm thinking, I've got it made, I'm going to be going quickly, I'm going to do just fine. And so I'm speeding along, thinking nothing about it. And I get to about that same area of the highway, And this time there's a car approaching me with its high beam headlights on that blinded me totally to what was going on in front of me. And as that car passed me by, and I sort of went over a little bit of a rise in the road, all of a sudden my eyes readjusted to what I was seeing, and there was Bambi's mom and dad in my lane right in front of me. It was terrible. This time I was not so lucky. I hit one of those deer so hard, this time it did major damage to my car. So now again, with heart racing, adrenaline pumping, I've got another dread, the $1,000 that it's going to take me to repair this car. So I limped on into work, feeling a little bit dejected. And I remember talking to my supervisor, Leo, and I said, Leo, I don't know what to do. I said, I have to leave at 2 in the morning to get here to work on time. I've hit 2 deer in 2 weeks. I just don't know what to do. And Leo very kindly looked over at me and he said, Mark, he said, have you ever considered slowing down? To be honest, I had not thought about slowing down at all. It never occurred to me. But looking back, that was the first time the universe tried to send the message to me that I needed to hear. And there's 3 parts to it. Number 1, the solution to our problems is surprisingly simple. It's not easy, but it's surprisingly simple. The second thing is that when there is somebody that has a lot of experience and is kind, if they see what you're going through, they can usually identify the problem immediately and offer you a solution. And probably the most important message that came out of it is that any solution to our problems requires us to be willing to change our own behavior and our own thinking. But I didn't get the message internalized at that time. I was still young, dumb. And the reason why, I'll share it with you just very briefly because I don't want to go into that whole situation, but I grew up in a very traumatic childhood with alcoholism, physical and emotional abuse, and I came out of that childhood a survivor. I was a fighter and a survivor. I was fiercely independent, very stubborn, and I didn't trust anybody, so I wasn't going to listen to anyone. So the universe tried to give me the message, but I didn't hear it. But I did get it 6 years later. Because at this time, the problems that were occurring in my life meant that what I was doing, what I had learned in my childhood, I had now brought into my children's childhood. And I had a lot of problems related to my drinking. And believe it or not, those 3 tools were the keys to my solution. Number 1, it was surprisingly simple. I needed to stop drinking. Again, it wasn't easy because I didn't know how to do that, but it was surprisingly simple. The second part about having trusted advisors with experience. Well, there's a whole group of people in all 12-step programs that have experience with exactly the problems that I was experiencing. And if I was willing to listen to them, if I was willing to learn from them, they could identify my problem and the solution immediately. Finally, the big question, was I willing to change my behavior? And by this time in my life, I had been beaten to a pulp, and I was finally willing. Now, I've shared 2 nasty stories about how these 3 things will help you, but it goes further than that. Because those 3 principles are not what I call negative sobriety or only ways to solve negative problems, but they're also things that will help us move our lives forward. So about a year after I got sober that time, I met a very amazing man. His name was Tim Wood, and he was a real estate broker and became my mentor and somebody that I worked with for the next 10 years. And what I was able to do with Tim Wood is I was able to find out that not only could I solve problems, but I could create a life by doing the things that successful people did and doing what personal development coaches try to teach us. And so I worked with him that time, and he taught me all kinds of things. I listened to Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Napoleon Hill, all kinds of people, just like that. So as I bring this to a close, I want to ask you about you. I want to know where you're at. Is there any challenge in your life? Is there anything that's really obvious that you're missing? It could be a problem blocking you from happiness. It could be something that's blocking you from having the life that you want to experience. Second thing is there's somebody that you can bring into your life that can help you. A mentor, a coach, a trainer. Is there somebody that you need to bring into your life to help move you forward? And finally, are you willing to change your behavior to have the life that you want to live? I teach time-tested principles because I know if we master them, we can have the life that we want to achieve. And I believe truly that ordinary people, seemingly ordinary people just like me, and perhaps like you, can live extraordinary lives. So I'm going to invite you to get that coach, make those changes, and let's do it together. God bless.